Welcome. I am here today at the trading show, and this is my last interview. And I've only had a couple, and every single guest that came in to speak to me has been just really wonderful in their own way. And you could tell that a lot of them had history. And all of their history started after, in a kind of a cryptography, they started after Bitcoin. And Bitcoin moved them a lot. And Tim, you are like the cherry now on the top of the cake. It's like that perfect, but you just top it all because you go back before Bitcoin. The your ethos goes way before, and you've worked hard. And as today in your great presentation, by the way, Tim is going to have a book coming out. So make sure as soon as there's a link to pre-sign up, get it, because I watched the presentation and it was so great. It was a history.
A short history of cryptographic assets.
So precise, yeah. But anyhow, you'll find about that history later. For now, I would love for you to talk about what you're working on, and especially Ikigai,
Sure.
because First of all, I love Ikigai. I practice it. It changed the way I look at the world. And so I want you to talk about that.
Sure. So Timothy Lewis is my name. I've been involved in cryptography for the last 30 years or so now. As a developer, as a infrastructure, data center design engineer, data expediency engineer. And I've been a large part of a scene that's helped kind of paved the way for a lot of the things that are going now with the centralization and tokenization of assets. I was very much involved in the banking industry traditionally through most of my early career, and over the last 6 years that I've lived in LA, that's been one of the primary scenes for the understanding of tokenization and tokenization layer, which has been great. Today's conversation about the history is going to be coming out in a book, Age of Cryptography, which hopefully will be available by the end of the year. Going back to Ikigai Asset Management is a firm that I founded alongside Travis Kling and Anthony Entman as a asset management firm, ideally bringing some institutional quality investment vehicles into the space. Travis has a long history in the industry himself.
He's amazing.
He's a great guy. Our educational repo right now is at kanaandkatana.com, so people can go follow some of our repos of how we look at valuing all the different sorts of cryptographic assets when we consider them for investment. Ikigai as a term, though, is one that I also have been very drawn to. For those that don't know, Ikigai is at the center. It's your reason. It's at the center of what you love doing, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you get paid for, or what you receive value for. So that's been a great centering, ethos in a lot of the culture that we believe in. We as an organization practice meritocracy, and ideally we have a saying, and our saying is, the future is DAO. Ideally, the organizations that we build now are a part of building, utilizing these newer technologies will allow for more meritocracy within organizations that allow people that create value continuously, so we can have organizations that can be governed for 50 years, 100 years, beyond single founders and into this next evolution of governance. So it's important.
And so I really want to know, with your history and involvement, you've made so much difference in the biggest projects and just kind of trailblazed the whole industry, right? What is that drives you to today's point with the work that you're doing? Why is that you're doing what you're doing?
Decentralizing capital control. Is really the main driving force, moving away from central banks. And it's funny, most of the work that's done in the 80s and 90s, the point was being anonymous and not being vocal about the things that we're doing. And the last, even over the last couple of years has really been the only years that I've gotten really outside and trying to educate, because that's important too.
Yeah.
I think some of the main driving factors of adoption are through education and making sure that people understand what this stuff is and what it is not. And hopefully, as it gets adopted, which I believe is an inevitability, we can build systems that operate with high integrity and that are able to transition us from a world of borders to a borderless world of trust and trusted governance. So those are the things that are driving to me. Building systems for banks, although financially beneficial, not very fun, and not something that I woke up excited to do every day. And now that some of the systems that were theorized in the 80s and 90s are possible with Byzantine fault tolerant networks. It's just exciting. It's exciting to be out there, and it's exciting to help people think through some of the design questions for networks that may or may not be important as they play out.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is that the work that you're doing right now, it really is important for breaking the borders. As we're moving into toward really truly global society, these new functions are key, and financial industry kind of reorganizing it and making it better is what we need. With it being outdated, we kind of still going to have those borders. And so I have a question for you too. So next year is halving, so we are 1 year away from it. And what would be your dream? Like, what is that you imagine that in a year from now, when we celebrate halving, I'm sure we will celebrate it, right? If nobody is putting event together anytime soon and announces it, I think that we should certainly it will be very special. So what is that your most desired goal that you want to see then, that we also can celebrate and say, what, a year ago, that was like the dream, and now it's reality?
So for me, although I've kind of reformed my maximalist ways, and many people know that. I love Bitcoin, and I believe in Bitcoin as hopefully the alternative world currency and holder in the assets as an asset of value. The happening, there's not like a specific thing that I would hope for. I mean, it's great to see that again we're getting these resources in such a lesser fashion, and people understand kind of the scarcity of the network, and that continues the drums beat louder closer towards that time. We've in the last several happenings that have occurred, the markets start to pick up radically in the 6 months previous to the happening, because outside people who have started joining the network learn about this for the first time, and so we still don't have the number of people who have even heard of Bitcoin isn't as wide as we think, and there's just so many people who don't have any idea about some of the underlying principles of the network and protocol. Then they learn about it getting cut in half from a production standpoint. And that's interesting. What is going on, and how does that affect the underlying potential value and the continuous inflation? So it's just a moment that a lot of people start picking up and digging in, and hopefully educate themselves further every time. But in the things that I look more forward to during this next year, greater adoption, more use of the Lightning Network, which is at least interesting, but not only within Bitcoin, other networks that are going live, and other networks that are starting to build up users. The EOS network, which I'm a large part of as well. I'm interested in seeing that being used for more games. I'd love to see one DApp find its way to 1 million users in the next 6 to 9 months, and I think that that's possible. So I just want to see stress tests based on a consensus-based network that may or may not be full of collusion and interesting follies when it comes to governance of a unique network. So I want to see these things happen. I also am very keen on seeing Casper CBC live, working with Vlad and Michael Birch and Ronald on that project. I want to see that implemented, and I want to see that as decentralized as possible. I'm one of the group that also is interested in other permission-based blockchains. So I want to see the effect that a Facebook coin has on the education and understanding, and what rules and regulations they decide to set around that. And is this 2 billion people using the same stable value across the world? That's crazy.
That is.
That's crazy.
It's fascinating to me.
I hope that Facebook doesn't become the world reserve currency in light of this.
I've heard
they have the network. Ultimately, I hope that the world is opened and awakened by the education of this, and then realizes that we should not place our full trust in financial, transparency history into Mark Zuckerberg's hands. Ideally, we'll make better decisions, but it's still interesting.
Yeah.
And I am interested in seeing JP Morgan's product come out. We've got Hashgraph. Cosmos is just fired up. I want to see what that's doing. Some of the other derivative networks that are coming up, I want to see how they're doing. Then the continued use and hopefully higher adoption through some of the countries that need this as a currency most. The more use in Venezuela, more use in Turkey. Seeing that actually start to get wider usage. Hopefully, better wallets.
Where it can make an impact on people that don't have access and don't think about infrastructures when they think about food.
Right.
Rice and rotate.
Right. So, hopefully we'll get better ability to exchange crypto assets peer-to-peer, off-network, that will allow for easier, immediate transactions. And so, some of those things are starting to come. It's great. It's looking a lot better than it did last year, looking better than it did 2 years ago, looking light years ahead than it did in 2013. So,
for sure.
Exciting to see it all continue to grow and continue to develop, and people continue to be excited about this stuff. And I'm also as excited about the securities world of these things. Crypto assets are not just currencies, and understanding the true tokenized value of actual assets and securities that now can be represented on protocol networks that we can all agree to contracts. It's a good place to be.
There's a lot of development happening, and I really appreciate that you thoroughly mentioning so many of them, because all the things you mentioned, they actually have real feet on the ground to be able to do that in just 1 year, or maybe even under. And so I think that's really wonderful. When I see you, I think that you're kind of like a multi-dimensional traveler, because I don't know how you can be everywhere and then actually do this technical work, because that's the thing. You're not you besides being a thought leader, and besides which requires a lot of time, and you hop around the world all over, you're just everywhere. You also have ability to be able to kind of plug in and build it.
Yeah, I'd like to do a lot of design these days, and I have a great team.
Yeah.
So I cheat with some of the world's best developers that are around me.
But it's still work. It's still a mental power that you put into that. You might as well be. You still when you do that, you plug into the computer.
I make corrections. I see what's going on. I make adjustments. It's great though, because you have an international team of people that are assisting you and working on amazing things, and the collaborative tools and efforts. Now that we have the internet to rebuild the internet, it makes it a lot easier to collaborate with a lot of people, and you can do that from wherever now that we have remote access from the internet.
So what's your secret? What is your secret for having this unlimited energy? You just have unlimited energy. It's so nice, or at least seems to me.
Well, I appreciate that. Being driven by what this is we're doing.
Okay.
This is amazing stuff. Like, I get so excited about decentralizing capital control, about breaking down the barriers.
I can feel it.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I spent most of my time as an entrepreneur and someone who had dreamed of different access to capital that I just didn't have. I grew up on the farms in Ohio, and I had my internet and I had my conversations with BBSs and news groups and then IRC to communicate with people. And now we have the tools really to kind of take the infrastructure and restructure it to a place where it's more fair for the rest for everyone. And so that's something that it is really driving. And ideally, we're going to create a more transparent system that again, this all comes down to being able to communicate freely. And for me, it's this fight for freedom of information, and that's something that I've been about.
Extremely important.
It's something that I tagged into early on about the information of freedom for all people, and being able to communicate freely is important, and understanding value as a transfer of a communication of value, understanding currency as a communication of value. So being able to make sure that all people have the rights to be able to communicate in any way that they choose, so they can choose their communications of value. And so it's a fight for freedom and a fight for the freedom of information that's been going on for a while, and I'm just happy to be fighting and still.
You look like a multidimensional fighter too. You're like, okay, I'm here with peace. So that's fighting for good with peace and goodness and contribution, not the things of that clobber each other in the head. So it's kind of like you're trailblazing. That's all. That's what you're doing. You keep trailblazing. And so with all that in mind, I would like to finish our meeting and to you guys meeting as well. Tim, he's amazing. I'm just going to say it again. He's amazing. I'd like you to maybe think about one wisdom that our viewers and me too, because it's my interview, so I feel I'm sharing this with you guys, but I do think that, it's my interview, so that we can keep in mind, and if there's an issue or if there's a good thing happening, and if it comes to our mind, we think, okay, Timothy said that, that's the wisdom.
So I would say that the most important thing that we will hopefully be building is a system of self-sovereign identity. I think that at the root of all of this, if you aren't familiar yet with the battle for self-sovereign identity, spend some time to go look up what that means, because if we lose our ability to create identification systems that we own for ourselves without the restriction of different governments, then we lose our freedom. And so ultimately at the root of this, for me, is identification, and being able to own that identity, own your data, and being able to communicate freely. And choose
how you integrate with the world with that identity, and maybe have several identities, right, to compartmentalize. But it is really the biggest challenge. Where would viewers really kind of find the best information about that? Where do you go look up?
There's some cool projects, like Sovereign's a cool project. There's interesting work that's going on with ID 2020, and people can go start seeing what some of the current initiatives are from a global standards resource. But Google self-sovereign ID. Self-sovereign identity.
I Google everything.
Go find the Everopedia pages on it, and the Wikipedia pages on it. The system, identity has been an issue for since the dawn of time, and now we just have systems that might be able to allow us to
accelerating a little bit more.
The thing is,
we have tools.
We have tools, and we have this network that's of interconnected individuals that go beyond government borders. So we can now kind of create systems ourselves for the first time that we can agree upon for identity. And there will be systems that are going to get pushed upon peoples in different countries that won't allow them to own their own identity. We primarily have those instances now. But being able, if we all start to use systems that are not centrally controlled, so it's not your Facebook login or not.
Then there will be forced adaptation into some kind of form of it.
Ideally, right? And we've never solved identity in large groups to date. But over the next 10 years, 15 years, we will all be communicating on, very, very close networks of trust, and those are the type of things that need great identity systems. And ideally, we'll find the decentralized, way to do that in a self-sovereign manner.
I agree. And so what's the best way to kind of get hold of you, to find out about, because there's so many works that you're working on too. You have roles, and then you're contributors, and you're very active. What is the best way to get hold of you?
Depends on what it is.
Okay.
Right. My LinkedIn is fine. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Is a social network that's great for business purposes.
I agree.
I'm not on Twitter, so I don't do any of the crypto Twitter stuff. my friends find me on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I'm still on the Facebook because I kind of believe in representing yourself on the different networks as you choose to be known in open information. The Telegram is okay if you hit
fine.
me. It's tough to go around.
It's fine to find something in there.
It's tough to go around and do it. I mean, Ikigai.fund has information about how to contact myself or Travis or Anthony. Most people know how to get in touch with me.
Come see you live. You're so
come see.
active. I would say that Google, and then Google will tell you where he's speaking next time. I'm sure it will just pull up the
Schedule?
the future.
You got the future?
Basically, yeah, future events.
It's so funny because
I think it's go see. That's the thing about you. You're so open. You're always there, and I have only witnessed you be open to people.
Yeah.
You're just open. You're there. You answer questions. You welcome input. You're just right there, present for everyone.
I appreciate being in the presence of others.
Yes.
So it is nice. And thank you, Irina.
Yes, thank you for your time, and thank you for your time, and see you soon.